And we're back. You're listening to the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. And don't forget, man, if you're, conscious about your health and, your well-being and all of that, don't forget. I know you keep track of your diet and you keep track of, your heart and you exercise and do all those things, like I do. But you got to make sure that you keep your brain in good shape, too. And there's a new only patented brain supplement out there, and you need to learn about this because it can not only help you now, but if you're an athlete, it can help you. If you're an older person, it can help you get your memory back and make your mental sharpness and awareness way better. Check it out what I'm talking about, and you'll see what I mean. Go visit boxingbrainhealth.com or just click the green banner that's up on BillyCBoxing.com. It's on the left-hand side, and it does say Boxing Brain Health. So check it out. Trust me. That's how I remember my name is John. Billy C. You get the idea, right? Well, it's time for
Blast from the Past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Top-ranking Joe Louis is the leading contender.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time.
Look at that left hook. Belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by my man and his KOFantasyBoxing.com, features a former. It's that brain health supplements I'm taking. I can't even remember what my name is. But anyway, today's Blast from the Past features a former world champion and boxing Hall of Famer, Duilio Loi. And joining us right now to tell us all about that is my man, Alex Papali. What's up, brother?
Hey, Billy C. Good evening.
Is the
do you hear me okay? I'm getting a lot of static.
I hear you
fine.
fine.
Sure I should call back.
I hear you fine, but if you have a problem on your end, why don't you just call back and as soon as you...
Oh, no, sorry. If you can hear me, then let's go for it, because it seems to be coming in and out. It's kind of like a radio station.
Yeah, we have some bad weather, so it could be the phone lines here, but any event. Duilio Loi, am I pronouncing it right?
This is one of those guys that I wish I spoke Italian this week. I went there once when I was 13. My great-grandmother took me, and I was there for 6 weeks, and I did sort of pick it up a little. But there's a few videos on YouTube that they're in Italian, and unfortunately, I just can't follow it enough to get the most out of them. I wish there are a few clips of his fights, but I'm very because just like here in they have some and a half. I thought not a very tall guy. Fought at lightweight, junior welterweight, and welterweight, and we're talking about a career that spanned from 1948 to 62, and unfortunately, I don't have a lot of good anecdotes for this guy. There's not a lot of great, at least not that I found, just mainly numbers on him, and his numbers are impressive as hell. He was a well-built brawler. I did see a an article from 2008 from our man Martin Mulcahy on Yahoo Sports, and he had some good info about him. One of the things about Loi that was really, really impressive, Bill, is you got to think his chin was incredible. He was never down, and his defense, he was a bobbing, weaving, constantly moving type of a target, had to have a hell of a chin, never dropped in 126 fights. But he was really not a heavy puncher. He wasn't a guy people could beat up. You had to solve him.
You know, and when you look at this guy, you would think that his style, because he was a bob and weave, you would think that he had the pop behind it, but he didn't. Out of his 115 wins, he only had 26 knockouts, and I never saw anything on him that said he was like a guy that moved a lot, you know, like a boxer on his toes. I mean, what was his overall style? I know he fought different times, you know, different styles, but what was the most common style that he would fight?
From what I'm reading, it seems as if he could go in and out of a sort of crowding, pressuring style to more of a boxing style. But you're right, it wouldn't be lots and lots of movement like we would see today. It would be more of the infighting, I guess, you know. I mean, they were just talking in the chat room about James Toney. James Toney is the guy who kind of springs to mind because a guy who has a really good inside game, not a huge puncher, but is able to exploit your mistakes. That's the way Duilio Loi sounds like to me. And from the little clips of video, you definitely see that. Really good left hook, nice, crafty type of a fighter, and speedy. But not, you know, if you look at his record, I mean, he was just amazingly active in Italy, and a lot of these are, you know, guys we have not heard of, but he just is dominant. I mean, fighting constantly, fighting so many times a year that you know, that's one of the things like Sal was just saying. The activity is you know, that just you don't see that as often today.
You know, it seems, you know, he was a volume puncher, and, you know, you're trying to find a guy to compare him to. You know, it's almost without power, but a similar style as Vito Antuofermo, because Vito Antuofermo used to be a guy that would crowd you as well, but Duilio was a guy that I thought was more of a combination of a Vito Antuofermo and a Paulie Malignaggi, you know, to stay with the Italian, because Paulie would does continue to throw high volume punches like Loi, but he fights from a distance. And Vito Antuofermo was a guy that really wasn't a knockout puncher, but fought up in close, you know. So it almost seems like he was a combination of the two.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good comparison, and I do think that that's what really good fighters are able to do. You know, I mean, I think me and you disagreed a couple of years back when Hopkins and Pascal fought, and Hopkins, there was a few moments in maybe it was the first fight where Bernard just sort of did this pity pat sort of thing against the guard of Pascal. And I remember Pascal in the press conference, I think for the rematch, made fun of him, saying, you know, this is the way Bernard Hopkins fights. And you were saying how, yeah, that is. He's doing an exact impression. But the thing about V-Hop is that, yes, in that moment he did that. But, you know, that's the thing about a great fighter. You have so many, and that's something that one of the trainers here in New Haven, Brian Clark, said to me recently about one of the prospects he's got, is that he doesn't just have one left hook. He's got like 6 different left hooks, you know, and that's the thing about a guy like Duilio Loi, is that he, like we've talked about some of the greats recently, he was a craftsman. And, you know, there's not just the left hook, but there's the in close sort of make some room left hook. There's the falling away left hook. You know, there's lots of different things. The check hook, you know, that people love to talk about on Showtime.
I hate that.
So, you know, that's what great fighters do, is that they look at it as a craft, and any craftsman has a big toolbox.
You know,
That's what she said.
Yeah, just for the record, that argument about B-Hop and Jean Pascal was that I thought that Jean Pascal imitated him perfect not at the pitter pat. I remember but it was more of that wild. Remember when he came, put his head down and was like doing this wild thing. That's I thought that Jean Pascal did do. To me, that was probably the most entertaining things Jean Pascal ever did, outside of a ring. I thought it was funny. But anyway, one thing that I admire about Loi and his era, really, is that, and it's something that we're missing today, and to be honest with you, Alex, I think it hurts the sport, and it's almost looked upon negatively today. When you look through Duilio Loi's resume, you see that he fought a lot of fighters multiple times, and the in 3-fight series, trifectas, so to speak, trilogies. Eddie Perkins was 3 great fights, as well as Carlos Ortiz, 2 top-notch fighters that he fought 3 times, and it's something that for some reason today's sport of boxing shies away from, and I don't understand it, because there's nothing better than a really competitive trilogy. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we don't have the competitive fights anymore to warrant multiple fights.
Yeah, I think we've had a couple of famous ones of the past decade or 2 decades. But you're right. It used to happen a lot more frequently that there'd be trilogies in multiple divisions. Of recent memory, you can't help it's a quadrilogy or quartet in Pacquiao Marquez, but you had a trilogy of fights with Pacquiao and Morales. You had the great Israel Vazquez and Rafael Marquez. That was also 4 fights. But yeah, this guy, and to me, that's kind of what makes, I don't know, because a lot of people have been talking about where Mayweather's place is since he retired, supposedly retired just a couple weeks ago. And to me, that's what makes, in my mind, Pacquiao greater than Mayweather, is having faced the same guy again and again and really prove to each other who's better. The only time Mayweather did that was, with Castillo, which of course that's the time I actually got a chance to see him live, and it was impressive, but it was not all that thrilling. He dominated Jose Luis Castillo and avenged the closest thing to a defeat anyone ever thought he had, and the other was against Maidana, which was the same sort of situation, but most people didn't think Maidana won. He just was competitive. But a guy like Loi, those 3 fights with Carlos Ortiz, the thing about him that was fascinating, and especially in a world back then, there was only newspapers, so reporting these boxing matches, and there was some TV.
Yeah, it was in the 50s and 60s. Come on, it wasn't that far.
Yeah, so there's TV. Yeah, what the hell am I talking about? But there's there's probably like the Friday Night Fights type stuff. But he fought a lot of these, fights in foreign venues, and that fight with Ortiz, that was the first one. They thought that he won. The crowd did, at least. The crowd really booed him. He lost, and that was June of 1960 in San Francisco. In a way, that was like one of those, it's sort of his debut. It probably wasn't his very first time that the TV audience had seen him.
But it was the first time and only time he ever fought in the U.S.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that's a knock on a guy like this, is that, and there were, and this is something Marty Mulcahy brings up in his article, there's other corollaries to him that recently it's happening less often because of the internet. The world's gotten smaller. There's feeds you can watch these foreign guys. But I remember when I was becoming a fan in the 80s, a guy I always saw in the results and at the top of the division were the Galaxy brothers, Kaosai Galaxy. But I never got to see him fight, never. But I would read about him, you know. So I think that's one of the things that Duilio Loi was like until that Carlos Ortiz fight, and then you're right, they had two more, and he ends up prevailing, winning 2 out of 3.
Out of in his career, out of 126 fights. And, like you mentioned, most of his fights, obviously, I mean, he fought in the UK a couple times, Australia a couple times, US once, but the majority of his fights were all in Italy. And a lot of those guys we don't know. But the two most significant fights, if you have to pick out the two most significant fighters, I should say, 6 fights total, he bested both of these guys, and both of them are Hall of Famers. Carlos Ortiz, of course, he won 2 out of 3. The only one that he lost was the one at the Cow Palace, which was a split decision. So it wasn't even like, a split decision is a loss, but it's obvious that it was a close fight. So I mean, he loses that one, wins the next 2, and then Eddie Perkins, he's also a Hall of Famer. He bested him, winning his last fight. And winning the title and, winning it back, I should say, and or actually he fought for the title in the first fight and lost, but then got a second shot at it in his his final fight of his career, only 3 months after the first shot, wins and then retires, which is another huge thing that I admire with fighters that have the opportunity to walk away from the sport as a world champion. Very few can do it, and Duilio Loi did.
Yeah, he sure did, and you're right. I mean, he leaves on such a high note. It's the George Costanza of boxing. Who guys like Ricardo Lopez got to do it. Of course, Mayweather just did it a couple of weeks ago. But this, like you're saying, this is a more impressive high note in that he avenged a defeat in Eddie Perkins. Eddie Perkins is a young, dangerous, super lightweight, and it's on the world stage, and then he retires and he never comes back, like a Lennox Lewis type guy who. So the last memory you have of him is pristine,
Right.
It's not jaded by, a defeat to Hector Camacho or going life and death and dropping a decision to Terry Norris,
Exactly.
So I do think that there's something to be said for that.
I listen, to me, in all sports, not just boxing, to be able to go out on top. I mean, for some of the young people that got to see Michael Jordan, with his many comebacks, didn't see the real Michael Jordan unless you saw him with the Chicago Bulls in the 80s. It's the same thing. Even Jerry Rice as a receiver, he faded and stayed playing in football, and it's the same in boxing. Lennox Lewis, his legacy increases year after year. Same thing with Calzaghe. I never thought much of Calzaghe, but he retired at the top, and as time goes on, that's what people remember, and unfortunately, they don't remember Duilio Loi because he wasn't an American fighter, but that's why we have this segment. Were you able to find anything? I know that later in life, especially when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, he was in rough shape. He was suffering from Alzheimer's. His daughter actually made the trip to accept the award for him, and then he passed away a few years after. Did you know what he did? I wasn't able to really find out what he did after boxing.
No, I did not. I didn't either. Just the Eddie Perkins fight, and then Alzheimer's disease, and he was. I guess he didn't make it to the ceremony in, when he got in. What was it, 2005 when he was inducted?
Yeah, so 40 years after the Perkins fight, we can't find anything that this guy did. We should try to look into that. I should.
Well, and I should confess that I only did my research today, so I'll look for more.
I'm just curious.
We should do a further.
I'm just curious myself. Maybe we'll give Marty a call. And
I'm sure that I would hope that obituary. I did not see an obituary, so I would hope that obituary might at least say what he did. If you open a restaurant, God, I know that's such a stereotype.
Yeah, what are you talking about? What are you trying to say, Alex? That maybe he opened a pizzeria or something? I mean, come on, hey, some of my best friends are Italian,
That's right.
but hey, the thing is that, with for some reason the box rec says he's still alive at 86. When I know for a fact with the Hall of Fame write-ups that he passed away in 2008. But Duilio Loi, who did you put him in with, man?
Oh, okay. So with our updated rankings on the Billy C Boxing site, I put him in using the Title Bout Championship Boxing computer game. I put him in against number 1 at 135, number 1 at 140, and number 1 as of September 12th at 147. So first, against Mickey Bay, the best lightweight in the world right now. This is kind of embarrassing. Duilio Loi went 100-0, and 16 times he stopped Bay. I couldn't believe it. The first time I put them in against each other, Loi just dominated, won a unanimous decision. One judge had it 115-114. The other two had it 117-112. No knockdowns, but Loi dominated him. And then when they fought 100 times, he sure as hell dominated him. You can't get more dominant than that. But only 16 knockouts of the 100 wins. So at 140, I put him in against the dangerous Lucas Matisse. When they fought the first time, Loi won a majority decision, no knockdowns. Two judges had it 115-113 for Loi, and the third had it dead even at 114 apiece. When they fought 100 times, Loi dominates, 72 victories, 19 defeats, 9 draws, 7 knockouts. That's it. And of Matisse's 19 wins, he scored 4 KOs. So that was sort of interesting to me. That, gives Loi a lot of cred compared to the modern day. And then against our friend Floyd Money Mayweather, the number 1 at 147. When they fought the first time, it went Duilio Loi's way. Split decision. One judge had it 115-114 for Loi. Another had it 117-113. The third judge had it 115-114 for Floyd. So close fight, no knockdowns. But over 100 fights, Loi goes 20 victories, 61 defeats, and 19 draws. Of his 20 wins, he stopped Floyd 6 times. And of Floyd's 61 wins over Loi, Floyd got 6 knockouts.
That's unusual. He,
Yeah.
he the only people he knocks out is women. But anyway. But
yeah, and to think that he would stop Loi is kind of ridiculous. But I would think that's why it's so low, because it's 61.
Well, even though Loi did happen to win a welterweight title, a Euro welterweight title, he really wasn't a welterweight or even a junior welterweight. The majority of his career was in the lightweight division. So anyway, great job as usual. Duilio Loi, former Italian and European lightweight champion. He was a former European welterweight champion and a former world junior welterweight champ. He had a career record of 115 wins, 26 coming by knockout, 3 losses, and like Alex said earlier, never was stopped. He had 8 draws, and he was inducted into the International Hall of Fame in the year 2005. Duilio Loi, our blast from the past this week, and as usual, Alex, great job. And listen, we're gonna take a short break, but you can stick around and give me your thoughts on our topic today, plus that nail biter of a fight that took place over the weekend.
Sure thing.
Because everybody's interested in that one.
That was heavyweights at their best.
That's right. You don't get better than that. We'll be back.
Titans.
Yeah, we'll be back in 2.